Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Imagine Products YouTube channel. Today, I am here with Marcos Rocha, and we will be going over a little bit of his background in the industry, his current gear that he uses, a little bit about his own YouTube channel, and then also how he uses ShotPut Pro in his workflow. So yeah, how are you doing today, Marcos?
Doing good. Excited.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said, let's just hear a little bit about how you got into the industry and some of your past projects.
Yeah, so I started, I picked up my first camera pretty late in life. I had other
Mhm.
careers, so I just started experimenting with my sister's camera and like recording myself and just making vlogs. And then I really liked the process of being behind the camera,
Mhm.
but in order to keep on filming stuff, I had to film myself because I didn't know who to film. So that's why I kept up making vlogs on YouTube.
Mhm.
And then I got into weddings because I started searching on Google, like who's getting paid to do video, right? And
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
surprising, I didn't know weddings was a big thing, and
yeah.
so I started reaching out to wedding filmmakers. Did that, a lot of weddings, videography, and then I learned through YouTube that there was such thing as directors of photography, cinematographers that were doing it
Mhm.
at a bigger scale, and that like really interests me because it was a big challenge. I didn't want to get stuck in just doing videography work.
Yeah.
So over the years, I kind of refined and okay, no more weddings, no more type of no more videography type of jobs where it's just one man band myself. I try to get more bigger productions where I have a crew that
Mhm.
I work with, and there's a specialist, right? Where there's your gaffer and your sound, and now I can just focus on the visuals, making that the best as possible. So that really excites me.
Yeah. Do you feel like a lot of your learning early on happened through YouTube? I know that's kind of a theme, especially in the recent years. A lot of people in the industry have kind of come up through YouTube rather than through like learning from other people on set necessarily.
I think so. I didn't go to film school. I didn't want to go
Mhm.
back to school. I've gone to school. I went to school for a different thing, and I just
Mhm.
know that it doesn't prepare you for the real world. I
Yeah.
had a different career, and it's just what you do in the real world is very different from the theory. And so I found that it's better to just get out there and do it. And whatever I need to learn, I can go to YouTube and learn that specific thing that I'm trying to figure out. and
Yeah.
and that's too the reason I started making videos or tutorials. It's like, here's what I learned at my
Mhm.
skill level, which looking back is like, wow, that advice is kind of sucky, because but
Mhm.
it's good for like the beginners,
Yeah.
right? And so the type of content I make now, it's more for people that are more advanced. It wouldn't be necessarily applied to those that are just
Mhm.
starting out. And it's hard for me to make content now for people that are just starting out, right? Because
Yeah.
that is just I've gone past it, and I just don't want to make it. It feels very basic. So that's the beauty of YouTube. You can find education for all skill levels, and
Yeah.
what I find elementary is gold to someone who's just starting out. So that's
Yeah.
the beauty of YouTube.
Yeah. Well, and that's cool that like someone like you that maybe started making YouTube videos early on in their career and then kind of as their career advanced, your videos got more advanced. The idea that someone could start watching your very first videos and then almost work their way up to your newest videos and kind of follow your progression as they go through their own progression.
Right. And also I when I look at past videos, it's like, wow, look at that lighting, and like look at
Mhm.
the way I color graded that. That's awful, right? And so
Yeah.
there should be a natural progression where hopefully now my interview setups for my YouTube channel are pretty darn good, that
Mhm.
even if a potential client were to look at my set, I treat it too as like a calling card. Even though I don't get much work from YouTube, that if somebody were to see one of my YouTube videos now, they're like, wow, that's pretty darn good.
Mhm.
He's worthy of giving me advice,
Yeah.
right? As opposed
Yeah.
to having a really crappy interview setup, so it might like, why is this guy giving me advice if he's just you know?
Yeah.
But I really treat that as also part of my portfolio. If
Hmm.
somebody, if I tell a client or a potential client, hey, then by the way, I have a YouTube channel. If you want to get to know who I am, it's
Yeah.
also a way for them to know me and to feel comfortable, because when I reach out to potential clients, or they reach out to me, they're vetting me, seeing who I am. They don't want to hire a
Mhm.
total stranger. So the YouTube channel also helps me as a final decision as to who they're going to go with. Because let's say someone is completely out of the grid and there's just a blurry picture of them on their website. It's like, oh, I don't know
Mhm.
this person.
Yeah.
So that's how
Yeah.
I also treat my YouTube channel.
Yeah. And of course, you're dealing with very visual people in the film industry. So having that visual representation of kind of what you can do and your skill set is probably a great asset to have.
Totally, totally. Yeah. And I've had like maybe one or two clients hire me because they found me on YouTube. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
so that's a bonus.
Yeah. Um, so kind of going into your YouTube channel, you obviously cover a lot of different topics. Is a lot of what you cover like gear that you personally use, or do you get requests for videos? How do you come up with like what you're gonna cover in each of your videos?
Yeah, I now is I only try to review products that I like and that I would use.
Mhm.
If I wouldn't use it, I probably won't review it. I'll decline it. Decline a lot of stuff nowadays on just because I know the amount of work that's going to take to make a single video. It's a lot of work. People
Mhm.
don't realize it, that to make a 5 minute video, it might take you 2 days. And
Yeah.
now that luckily that I'm busy enough to to be a director of photography and be pretty semi busy this year. Actually, slow down this year, but
Mhm.
I know just the amount of work that it takes. I don't have the time for that. I'd rather buy the product as opposed to get it for free and make a whole review video. It's just too much of my time. My time is uh, best spent on my actual jobs, that
Yeah.
actually pay me and that I'm excited about.
Mhm.
Um, so also like the stuff that's being, when someone reaches out, a company, they want me to review a beginner's product, I would say some
Mhm.
something that if you're just starting out, a one-man band, a videographer, that's that'd be great for someone starting out. But for me, I can't show up with a lot of that gear that they're willing to send me, so I don't want to review it,
Uh-huh.
because you do get judged on set what gear you bring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's very cheap gear or like beginner's gear, it's like, ooh, where are you, did I hire the right person? Are you not a professional? So so that's just part of the reason that now I I don't keep up with my YouTube channel as much as I should, but I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing, because that means I'm more dedicated to my actual job, which is the director of photography.
Mhm. Yeah. So going with your actual job, your director of photography, what are some of the past projects you're working on, or maybe projects that you're working on now that you're excited about or loved being a part of?
Yeah, so here I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. There's a lot of Silicon Valley corporate jobs, corporate videos, documentaries. I'm involved in a lot of
Mhm.
documentaries, like the just a small portion of documentary. Not necessarily I spearhead the whole documentary. Is,
Yeah.
let's say a production's coming into town and they have a subject that they need to interview for this bigger documentary. I get hired for those, right?
Okay.
Also, TV shows, when there's something happen here in the Bay. Those are the ones that are to me the most exciting, because people that like family members or friends, like, oh, I filmed for this TV show and here it's coming out, I don't know, 8 months from now.
Mhm.
And then when it comes out, it's like, that's shareable, right? When it's a TV show. Um,
Yeah.
so those are the cool ones that people are like, I can tell my family about. But
Mhm.
the corporate videos, not so much, because it might just
Yeah.
be talking head stuff. So I like to say that I'm mostly, and I do like half of my jobs are documentary stuff.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like when you see your name in the credit, is that something you look forward to after a project's been completed?
Yeah, recently I did one for when sharks attack.
Hmm.
It just came out this month of July, and I was showing my son. He's 5 years old,
Yeah.
and that's something I could show him, and he was really
Hmm.
excited. And then the end credits came out, and there's my name in there's like six director photographies just because they shot that episode in different cities, and I
Hmm.
shot the stuff that's here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I paused it, and I told my son, "Look, that's my name right there." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And like, can you get my name there? I'm like, no, sorry, it's only if you worked on the production. But yeah, and so those are the cool jobs that you
Yeah.
can share with family and friends, and make you feel proud for to do this
Mhm.
job.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, so a little bit, going a little bit into the gear that you use. I know a lot of people in the film industry like talking about gear and comparing what they use versus other people's workflows. And there's pros and cons to so many different pieces of people's setups and what they use. And I think that's something that's very cool and unique to this industry is there's no one right way of doing things, and there's so many different ways of um, whether it's lighting setups or camera options or lens options. I mean, there's just so many options um, out there. So, what do you personally recommend, and what are your tried and true favorites?
Yeah, so I guess camera is the most important thing because that's primarily what I bring when they
Hmm.
hire me. I bring the cameras. It's either I'm shooting Sony FX9 or Red. Red, I have the Red Raptor now
Hmm.
for more commercial productions or bigger productions usually. The It all depends. Documentary, I would say Sony FX9 is a very highly requested camera. It's great for that, and it's like great codec.
Hmm.
So it all depends on the production that I'm involved in.
Yeah.
Um, and as far like sometimes I still do one man band or small productions, and that's where I have lights, I
Hmm.
have the grip equipment, I have a van, and that helps to get hired sometimes because productions are coming to town. They don't want to source all the stuff, but I have it, and
Yeah.
I can operate as a small crew,
Hmm.
let's say 3 or 4 people, and I have the lights and the grip and the van and the cameras, the lenses, so that helps, right?
Yeah.
But not everyone can do that. It depends where you live and what area, right? Because to store all that stuff,
Hmm.
you need space, or um, you need to make sure you can keep it safe as well.
Uh-huh.
So it's not doable. So it all depends on what kind of productions you're involved in. For documentary work, which I do a lot of, it's smaller crews. So it helps me, makes it easier for the producer when they reach out to know that I have this stuff. It makes their job easier.
Yeah. Cool. So a little bit of a segue then um, into our product, ShotPut Pro. Is that something that when you're working on a production, do people ask if you have that, or do they request like a way of protecting footage or data, or is that something you choose to bring to the table?
Yeah, I started using ShotPut Pro because I would see on bigger sets, that's what they were using. Either sometimes is the director, the DIT, or the first AC. Sometimes, you know, that responsibility is put on different people,
Hmm.
and so I always saw that's what they're using. And again, back to the gear, you want to make sure you are using I guess, the right stuff, the professional thing to do. It's or like the right tripod, the right camera, because otherwise your professionalism is put into question.
Yeah.
And I feel like the drag and drop method, how I grew up, how I came up, it's just you drag and drop the media, but that could bite you because maybe something failed and you didn't see it, right? Or
Hmm.
you know something could have happened, like, and you might not get an error if you just do the drag and drop method.
Yeah.
But if you have a program that can verify, like ShotPut Pro, then you know that everything transferred correctly, and so
Hmm.
down the line, the editor can't say, or the production can't say, hey, are you sure you did it right? Because sometimes that's my responsibility to transfer the data. So yeah, there's productions where they do ask for me to back up the footage, but they don't necessarily ask that I use a checksum program like
Yeah.
ShotPut Pro, but I still use it just to cover my butt and
Mhm.
not have them ask me months, weeks down the line. It's like, hey, are you sure you backed it up? I can say, hey, well, I used the program. There's the
Yeah.
report, and I did my job. Maybe your editor or the hard drive got corrupted,
Mhm.
but it wasn't on me.
Yeah.
So I don't want to feel that sense of guilt, and
Mhm.
which could cost you future jobs.
Yeah.
So that level of professionalism, it's just a way to cover yourself and
Mhm.
to make sure you keep a good relationship with client, an ongoing relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, a lot of people don't fully grasp like there are so many things that could potentially go wrong when you're offloading footage. And it doesn't happen very often. I mean, that's the truth of it. You're not using ShotPut Pro because you're gonna get corrupted files like every time you offload. But you're doing it for the off chance that you do get corrupted files. I mean, it can be as simple as your drive overheating. SSDs internally move very quickly. And if you're ever offloading a lot of footage and you touch like the SSD, it's hot. And that can, if it overheats, it can cause corruption. And I don't know if you saw recently, SanDisk drives have a class action lawsuit against them because they've been losing data. And that's scary. I mean, that's when you're a DIT, a data wrangler, or even just that's your job on set. Um, Most people aren't going to blame the drive. They're going to blame the person that offloaded the drive. Um, and so that can be a tough situation if the drive failed you and it's not really your fault, but somebody's to blame. Um, so yeah, there's
Yeah,
it's kind of where.
and we're not all DITs, right? So I'm a
Mhm.
director of photography that sometimes often gets asked to back up footage. It shouldn't be my role, but that's what happens. Or
Yeah,
sometimes it's a producer who's there with me. Hey, can you back it up? And or they do it. And so it's always good to have a program that can give you just that assurance that everything transferred, because it's very hard to after the fact. Hey Marcos, please don't format the footage because we'll double check later, and so
mhm.
that. But then I'm on to the next job, and like, sorry, I have to format my media,
Yeah,
or or like, let's say I have to back up the footage on my end and then ship the drive. I want them to have those reports there, and so they know that I did the backup correctly. And
yeah,
even if they don't know anything about using a ShotPut Pro or a checksum program, they see it and they ask me, what is that? And like, oh, and then I explain to them a
mhm.
little brief explanation. I was just making sure it's a program I use, I pay for, that make sure everything transferred correctly. And so
Yeah,
that gives me bonus points, even if
mhm.
they don't have no idea what it is.
Yeah. Um, so going back to like when you first got started and first were doing like your wedding videography, if you had known about Shotput Pro, do you think that's something you would have used then, or do you think in your early days it just would have been something that you saw as like kind of just like overkill?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have. I knew about it. I probably wouldn't have used or paid for
Hmm.
it, because when you're beginning, you're not making enough money, so you're trying to cut expenses
Yeah.
as much as you can. And like, what for? I can drag and drop. What's the big
Hmm.
deal, and so probably wouldn't have. Same thing with like gear. You when you're starting out, you look at the cheapest lens, the cheapest tripod, just
Hmm.
so you can get started, because the rates, you might not be getting paid what you want or what would justify getting the good stuff. That Yeah, again, back to my YouTube channel at the
Yeah.
beginning, like if I would send a cheap product, I'm like, this is freaking great. But now when you're dealing with clients that have been on production for years, now you're dealing with the producer, director. They expect professionalism, like having the expensive tripod, the expensive camera, everything has to say it's legitimately professional.
Hmm.
And so ShotPut Pro is like that piece of software that says I'm legitimately professional.
Mhm.
So I think it's something you build up to,
Yeah,
really.
gotcha. Yeah, I definitely see that.
At least for me, it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think especially like you said, when you're starting out, like when you're presenting your rates to people, especially people that aren't in the industry and don't know all the work that goes into it. I mean, I would say like when you're doing videography for a wedding or taking pictures for a wedding, most of the work happens after the fact. I, right? Doing the editing probably takes longer than the actual shoot.
Hmm.
Um,
Totally.
so
It's again back to who you're dealing with. When you're doing videography, you're dealing with, let's say, a business owner, a couple
mhm,
that don't know anything about the gear. So you can get away with having cheap stuff, like, or not doing things, having a proper workflow. You can get away with it. They don't know anything about video
yeah,
production. But when you get up to the bigger jobs, you're dealing with people who know the industry, who's been around it for years, and who know what is the standards. And
mhm,
so therefore you want to check those boxes.
yeah, definitely. Um, So moving on to kind of just what you have going on right now, are there any upcoming projects or anything, um, any YouTube videos in the works that you want to highlight?
Well, luckily, I've been kind of busy with work, traveling to
Yeah.
different parts of the country, just doing these corporate videos. This week, I'm actually packing up right now to go to Los Angeles to do some educational content, which will be pretty cool because I'm filming people that work in Hollywood, like
Yeah,
directors and gaffers, and talking to them about their job. So that's this coming up this week. So I'm excited about that.
very cool. Do you have a like a dream location you'd love to shoot at? I know you're mostly based in the San Francisco Bay Area, but is there somewhere that you've seen other DPs or productions happening at where you're just like, wow, that location looks cool. Like I'd like to film there.
I guess like I'm interested in getting into virtual production, like the
Okay.
big LED walls, not necessarily a particular city, but a particular
Yeah.
type of environment. I just want to test it out. It seems like a
Hmm.
cool thing to get into. Um, I see that being more probably over the years as it gets cheaper and
Hmm.
more accessible. That would probably uh, that might take over, I would say,
Yeah.
because now you can get any background and make it look interesting in a studio, and you can just rent out the space, and hopefully it's not prohibitive in the future. That's doable. So I think it's a good thing that is becoming that we're seeing, and hopefully becomes more accessible. And I want to get into it, but as of now, it's just I haven't actually seen it in practice. So that's
Yeah.
something I would like to do.
Hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's kind of, I mean, there's been a big focus this year with kind of the streaming companies, especially to cut costs and become
Hmm.
profitable. And I see VR as a natural progression to cutting costs as opposed to on location shooting, just because there's so much versatility with what you can do with a VR background. I mean, you could shoot like all your scenes in one area potentially. Um, so
Yeah.
I do think it'll get cheaper and more industry professionals will have a chance to try it out um, and just kind of play
Yeah.
around with it really.
And once it does get there where it's more accessible, it just will save a bunch of time,
Mhm.
For documentaries, we go into a location, into their space, or we rent out a peer space or whatever, and then we have to massage the image, move furniture, move this, bring the
Mhm.
stands. That's why I have a van, because I need to bring
Yeah.
everything. And I'm looking forward to like getting a bigger production where I don't have to own so much gear, and it'll be just the camera and that's it.
Mhm.
And so I see that the virtual production could potentially eliminate the need to go to rent peer space studios that are just like a
Mhm.
beautiful location. You can just build it in the VR wall.
Yeah.
and be very specific, and that might save time. Or it might just be the same amount of work, but it would be more like in the computer work, not
Mhm.
necessarily on location work.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I do think it's interesting as directors and studios have so much access to like VR backgrounds and all this new technology. There's some people that like specifically push that away. Like I think two big talking points for the two biggest movies of the summer, arguably Barbie and Oppenheimer, were that they had a big focus on practical sets, which I just think is an interesting kind of comparison. Whereas like there's some directors that just purposefully shun some of the newer technology, and there's some that fully embrace it.
Yeah, kind of like the tungsten lights. You still see directors, or I mean, directors of photography say that old technology lights, it's the best. You're not gonna
Mhm.
get the same skin tones, and that's what I'm using, and I'm only using tungsten lights. But they're a pain in the butt to work with.
Yeah.
The bulbs blow out. You can't dim them as nicely. You can't change the color.
Hmm.
I embrace the new technology. I like to think that it just makes my job easier. So same with VR. I think that there's a lot of things that it's really good for. You can't say it's evil and it should never
Hmm.
be used, and it's like getting us away from the core. Like, all right, that could be true, but there's also great things about it.
Yeah. Yep. It's all about kind of striking a balance between the two. You don't want to completely get away from the roots of film, but there has to be, at some point, some progression and some technological advancements just to make things easier on the people making the films.
Yeah. I think it's becoming more more about your brain processing.
Mhm.
The work happens in the brain or in software in the cloud, as opposed to physical work. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? And
Yeah.
so I I don't mind getting touching C stands and hauling stuff and going upstairs with
Mhm.
my tripod to get this shot. I don't think that's going away necessarily. We still have a need for that, but there's a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be that. It could be done in a virtual wall, and you can skip a lot of that physical labor that's involved.
Yeah, and spend more of that time doing things that kind of fit your skill set a little bit more, whether it's editing or setting up the shots or just kind of brainstorming ideas.
Hmm. Totally.
Yeah, awesome. Well, one last question for you. Do you have a movie or TV show that really impacted your journey as a DP, as a filmmaker um, that you just kind of hold a lot of respect for?
Yeah, I mean, like visually speaking, I think it took me a long time to look at movies in a visual manner, right? Like,
Hmm.
how was it lit? How was it shot?
Yeah.
So that's been a process now. And now when I look at movies, I think I'm paying attention to those things. Like, oh,
Hmm.
look at this camera movement, and so yeah, I mean, I like looking because they go crazy colors, and the set design is amazing. So I like that for sci-fi for that aspect of it, you know. And like the
Yeah.
Mandalorian, it's like, how do you light this? How would I light this? So I'm always thinking about that. But I try not to, because then it takes me away from just the
Mhm.
story. And ultimately, I'd say it's more about the storytelling aspect.
Yeah.
If you have a good story with good characters, that's primarily the thing that makes something good.
Hmm.
And that's something I have to remember when I'm working on jobs. It's like, as much as I want to shoot this way, there's an AC right above us that's gonna ruin it. So
Hmm.
we have to choose a different direction away from the AC, or a different room, because the audio is more important than the visuals,
Hmm.
or like when you're so anyways, I'm not really answering your question. I'm just saying
Oh
that
no, you're fine.
the it's not so much about the visuals, I'd say. it's about the story and the characters and
Mhm.
all the other stuff like the production design. There's a lot of stuff that I look at, not just the visuals, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to say. I like The Office, how you see there's not beautiful lighting. It's
Mhm.
just, and then it's very verite. It seems like very dark style shooting, but like that never runs through your mind like, oh, that's
Yeah.
ugly lighting, I can't enjoy this, or that's
Mhm.
ugly camera work, it's not smooth, I can't enjoy this. You forget all about all of
Yeah.
that. And you should forget and not think about that. You should just be engrossed in the story and just enjoy it because it's so good that
Mhm.
the lighting should not take away from the story. So that's how I think about whenever I'm watching a movie. Is like, is the lighting taking away from the story? Does it fit?
Mhm.
And doesn't necessarily need to be pretty to for it to be good.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a common theme with a lot of the movies that have survived the test of time is the stories. Because obviously, when you're looking back at movies from the 70s and 80s, like the kind of techniques they used in the lighting and a lot of like even just like the footage doesn't look as crisp or clean, but it's kind of the stories that bring you back to those movies and the nostalgia of the characters that have made them last as long as they have. So,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here and for talking to us about just your past in the industry, your gear, just telling us a little bit about your story.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for setting this up, and yeah,
Mhm.
I look forward to using your your products. So it's just something I have in my laptop all the time, just on my shortcuts on the
Yeah.
left hand side corner, ready to click. So thanks
Awesome.
for
Mhm.
making it.
Awesome. Well, thank you.